看一下。这有车就不太好。
没事。这有车动的时候造成，这表示有个车来车往。
对。我们进去得设车，我得设后头车在路上有动物，注意这些车。表示有车进来，对。
And seeing a little bit of steam rising from a chimney.
你要是造头里，你就造头里。
我希望造
It
后
takes
头。
about 2 years for the beavers to feel brave enough to come up to the cars and get carrots. There are wild beavers, mind you.
这后头我也看不见，算了。
They're nervous at first. They're not confined to the prairie and the park, but they're found there most of the time. The park's really interesting because it contains a number of different environments. We have prairies, deciduous forests, mixed forests with conifers, mountainous terrain, and forests. Occasionally we'll see the herd of bison running along the road as fast as they can just to, with a little exercise
你
maybe?
找一个干净的 spot。
看不见。
把窗户给搂下来。
It's possible that you won't see any bison or another animal species on your first drive through the park.
对，你就架在你胳膊架在窗口上，甭动，你就甭动，你就住就
At
完了。
Omega, you can drive along the road through the animal areas as many times as you wish. You should take advantage of this because you may see animal species on your second time round that you missed the first. Your second drive through the park may be a completely different venture. Just remember the animals have the freedom to move around and are not confined to any one
这么
area.
厉害，这玩意儿没啥用。
Since bison are herd animals, they tend to come all at once if you stick a carrot out the window. This could mean you could have a lot of bison milling around your car. We discourage people from feeding the bison. They don't do much abuse.
你得从照，那个人过来了，那过来那人就不能照，他脸冲你，要脸背你，脸冲你。扫一下这个。
Of the animals. Unfortunately, it's not always possible to hear the animals live, because sometimes they just don't feel like talking or they feel particularly shy that day. So, keep your eyes and ears peeled, and we hope you have a great visit in Park Omega.
刚刚响，把那盖儿，镜头盖儿。
So, what happened next?
No, they decided to open it to the public and stopped hunting the animals that lived here.
往前走没事。
And in 1996, a
Stop
third
没关系，
associate, myself,
编辑干
arrived
啥
on
用
the
的？
scene and helped them develop the park. The park lodge was built at this time. We've been adding new species of animals ever since. We've gone from being a startup tourist business in 1990 to an attraction that welcomes 140,000 guests annually.
有好吃的吗？没有，小家伙。
没看你不给？
走，你看不该走了。那几个小家
看你多少钱？你给面包它吃吗？
伙，不知道。你可以试试。停。来找你呀。
On the other hand, the Wapiti prefer the
对，你
forest.
看它喂的时候你找去哪？
Each animal species is drawn to the habitat it likes best.
Certains animaux, il est indispensable de les mettre
However,
dans des-
some animals must.
他吃面包呢。
没吃过嘴。
The black bears are actually afraid of man, so you won't see them most of the time. In order to give our visitors the chance to see bears, we decided to devote an entire valley to them. Now visitors can watch them in their natural habitat in a large enough space.
行了，可以。我看不
It
见
would。be hard to recreate
Oh,
such conditions. When you're in the wild, you'll see on average an animal every 50 miles or so. But here, you see many more because the animals are given food. But the animals aren't entirely protected. They're still wild animals. We recommend that you stay on your guard and always remember that these are not domesticated animals. Keep a respectful distance from them, remain inside your vehicle when driving through the park, and never under any circumstances extend more than your hand out of your vehicle. And if you choose to feed the animals, we the right balance between making sure visitors see a certain number of animals and respecting the balance in the forest, which is inversely proportional to the density of the animal population. I'm European from Alsace. Therefore, I'm a very strong supporter of preserving our biological heritage for future generations. When I arrived at the park, I immediately studied the issue of the long-term management of the park. I came to the conclusion that we must not allow the park to be overpopulated. We must control the number of animals living here.
Ce dont je suis convaincu, c'est que l'animal.
Then we work at making the park even more fascinating. This is exactly what
猪
make the park even more
猪得
fascinating.
射猪，等
你
会儿。
得摇下来，这东西
Boring or
不一定
stuffing information
它
down
咬
people's
人，
throats.
不
We don't overload
它
visitors
可不
with
是
information.
那的玩意儿。
就
Basically, a visit to the park is a personally rewarding experience.
小猪小猪会动物。
被吓的。
We're talking to Olivier Favre on Radio Park Omega. Olivier, what's new this season
停
at the
停
park?
停停
Les nouveautés du
停！
parc
哎呀，
qu'on aura plaisir de présenter aux visiteurs seront tout
We're
d'abord
pleased to announce that we have a new pack of wolves that you can see at Area 1 on the map.
区区是你不要纵，我走的时候，你就随从远到近，你就推出去。
très près.
我开车你就带着你就进来了，不要
No
纵，
more than a few
纵你就
meters
晃，
away.
知道吗？
停停！
不要纵，
我要拍他们，别动！
Half an hour.
我要拍
我，会开到那
他
儿去。
会过来一开我就晃，你
The
别
wolves in the
开，
pack interact with
你
one
纵它这才晃啊！
你别开，我告诉你。
See how the dominant couple and other animals organize into a hierarchy within the pack. During the summer, from June 24th to Labor Day, a member of the staff will give a presentation
这
on
是
wolf
马呀？是什么
behavior.？
不知道，这也是路。
这可能就故事，他说的那种故事。哦，吓死我！大故事。
We also have something new at Area 10 on the map. We're currently extending the footpath and making it
不知道这
wide.
玩意儿咬人不咬人。
When the work's completed, the footpath will time ago. The park's participating in reintroducing wild turkeys, and you can see these animals as you take a walk along the footpath.
哦，这么多。
Également,
J'ai eu
le
un
visiteur
mot,
aura la
ça.
possibilité
J'ai eu un
de
mot.
découvrir de nombreux petits mammifères
J'ai
du Canada et du Québec.
Visitors will also be able to see many small, common Canadian mammals around the park lodge.
可以造啊，可以造自己张嘴。
一张嘴。
The Government Wildlife Service bring us different species of orphaned animals, which we take in.
好家伙！
Often these animals are bottle fed and released in the wild in the fall.
你这个光圈你得对一下。
In the summer, you'll see raccoons. They're around almost every year.
这样行。
Perhaps groundhogs,
摇头，摇头不就亮
porcupines,
了
and
吗？
fawns that the park rescues throughout the summer. You can see these young animals around the lodge. Eventually, they'll be released either in the park or in the wild, outside once they've reached adulthood.
"面包他让喂呢。
你看这东西就吃这个。
来个小的。
冲你就完，哎呦我天！
Both are responsible for making sure the Park Omega operates smoothly every day of the year.
停停。
Bien parc est ouvert tous les
The
jours.
park's open year-round, on Christmas, New Year's Day, Easter.
Il n'y a pas de journée.
Basically, the park's never closed.
Quand il y a des gens qui ont-
When people are on vacation, you need other people working.
Yes, that's right. Alain and Bruno will now tell us about all the animals you can see at Park Omega.
We have wapiti,
不
red
吃
deer,
这尾
fallow
雕
deer, whitefish,
算了走
wolves,
吧
coyotes,
它
bears,
雕的。
raccoons, and wild boars. Not
要
counting
软
the
裤，
squirrels
要是
and
软
small
裤。
Prey. But Alain, are people really safe in the park?
Faut comprendre qu'on est au milieu des animaux.
You have to understand that we're in the animal's domain. The visitor's only protection is high enough so animals can't stick their heads
呀，别
inside.
太走，别走，别
There's no
走。
risk to anyone visiting the park.
So you should never get out of the car.
People should remain inside the car for their own protection, but if they get out of the car, the animals will run away. The four-legged animals get nervous when they see a two-legged animal.
推
If
出
people
去
want to
推，
feed the animals,
不要
what
纵
can they give them?
对，我往前走。
We recommend carrots because this is a type of food that's not harmful to the animals, even if eaten in large
你
quantities.
老照镜使这没情趣，知道
C'est un
吗？
bonbon.
On top of that, carrots are sweet, so it's like
这
candy
是
for
怕
them.
独
And it's
特
a
的，
great way
你
for
要
them
开
to
始一份
explore
欣
the
赏，
park.
你得给人这种感觉，知道吗？
Une bonne partie de cérébrité. Il y a assez de
The
monde.
animals eat a lot of carrots in the summer. We have so many people who feed them.
C'est un aliment qui s'est
我有一个大厅，小心点。
And it's food that's safe to give.
Eh,
The
you can make-
carrots
Don't
can
pay
stick through a
you under.
partially rolled up window, which
Go
limits the
in.
risk of people getting their fingers bitten.
用依靠存进去。
C'est Sibérie 2 fois.
谁呀？
Il a fait à peine 50 pieds.
We'll now begin the tour with Alain and Winnie.
对，我动的时候
The
你一
first
定要
stop
推，
is
不要
a
一点
lake
作用也不
where
要。
beavers live.
Nos amis les castors.
Our friends, the beavers. Beavers are very important to us because they're Canada's national animal. We have many European visitors who want to see beavers.
喂鸭子。
Le castor, c'est un prédateur de
Beavers build their own habitats, which become home to many other species, including waterfowl, ducks, amphibians, frogs, and turtles. Beavers eat branches from trees that grow around their lodges, such as birch and aspen. In the wild, beavers that have to travel too far to find branches to eat simply end up moving to another area. So to prevent them from leaving, we give them enough branches every day so they can store them for the winter. By building dams, beavers make the water level rise, which is a form of protection. Normally, the beaver's lodge is in the middle of the flooded area. In addition, a high water level means they can swim closer to their food source, and this reduces the amount of time they spend walking on solid ground. Walking on the ground presents a great danger to beavers because it's at this time that they are the most vulnerable to predators. By flooding the area around their homes and building a series of dams, they're making themselves a large habitat in which they can live in complete safety.
Le castor est actif, mais sous la glace, on le voit pas.
Beavers are active in winter, but we can't see them under the ice. They store the branches they eat outside the entrance to their lodges, which is underwater, and go feed, then they return to their homes. If beavers run out of food during the winter, they must go get some more. This is very dangerous for them as they're not adapted to walking on the snow.
它得停着。
It's at this time they're most vulnerable to coyotes or wolves. Beavers have become adapted to a semi-aquatic lifestyle because it grants them a measure of protection and a supply of food for the winter. They can enter and leave their dwellings under the ice. They also make sure the openings to their lairs are beneath the frost line, otherwise they could become trapped inside. If this happens, the lodge would become their coffin. You can tell if a beaver lodge is occupied in the winter by walking up to it and seeing a little bit of steam rising from a chimney. This indicates that the lodge is warm, so a beaver must be living there.
它跟你。
跟我一样。
Si on croit qu'on a 3 endroits où on a des castors,
Beavers live in 3 different areas in the park. It takes about 2 years for the beavers to feel brave enough to come up to the cars and get carrots.
被咬
There are
啊！
wild beavers in winter.
我这边还在等啊，去。
They're nervous at first, but when they're in their habitat, they know they're safe. They get used to human beings.
不要zoom，一点zoom都没有。
Now, Alain will take us to see another famous animal that lives in the park, the bison.
le bison, c'est très représentatif de l'Amérique du Nord.
Bison symbolize North America.
Bovin, si vous voulez.
They're not the largest bovines on the continent. That title is held by musk oxen, but they do play a central role in the history of North America. Bison are very calm animals, and they live in herds. The bison we have in the park are prairie bison, not forest bison. Regardless of the weather conditions, they enjoy living in the prairie. Even in the dead of winter, with the wind blowing some 50 or 60 kilometers an hour, they simply hunker down in the prairie. The cold doesn't seem to bother them. They also tend to lie down during heat waves in the summer. The animals move together as a herd. They're not confined to the prairie in the park, but they're found there most of the time. The park's really interesting because it contains a number of different environments. You have prairies, deciduous forests, mixed forests with conifers, mountainous terrain, and forested mountainous terrain. Every species has found its own niche. There's no competition for the same habitat because each animal prefers to live in a different area. Bison are creatures of habit. They'll not really adapt to the changing seasons. During the winter, they'll not often move to new areas. This is the reason we feed them at the same spot all the time, because we want to reduce the time they spend wandering in the forest. But even if we feed them in the same area, sometimes they just feel like a change of scenery and they'll go elsewhere. So when the mood strikes them, the entire herd will move. Occasionally we'll see the herd of bison running along the road as fast as they can just to, we'll get a little exercise maybe? We don't know why they do that. Animals, they tend to come all at once if you stick a carrot out the window. This could mean you could have a lot of bison milling around your car. We discourage people from feeding the bison to prevent damage to vehicles. And on top of that, no one carrying our wapiti and red deer. The wapiti, another North American species, being the larger of the two. Distinct appearance. They're much darker, and their antlers, unlike the other members of the deer family, are flatter, like giant salad tongs, and extend to the sides as opposed to the back. Moose antlers act like a satellite dish. They use them to better capture sound.
Oh, 它的耳朵像那个 satellite dish.
How do members of the deer family survive?
Les animaux en hiver vont entretenir leur sentier.
In the winter, the animals will maintain their trails and keep closer together, much closer than they do in the summer. It's easier for them to defend against predators or maintain trails and living spaces by staying in a group. They move around less because it's hard for them to walk in the snow. Doing so requires a lot of energy, which they desperately need to stay warm. Consequently, they move around the park very little when it's cold outside. During the winter, the park is like a Club Med for the animals. They don't have to struggle to find food as they would if they were in the wild. Everything's handed to them on a silver platter. They're very happy with the arrangement. And we're happy, too. The animals stick around, which means people can see them. We figure they owe us at least that much. In the spring, they turn to more wholesome fare, like leaves and buds, which they prefer over what we give them to eat in the winter, fodder and pellets. Although the winter... The antlers fall off after mating season. A male deer with a large set of antlers is a majestic and noble sight. Wapiti lose their antlers in April, moose in January, however, the antlers harden and become a weapon. This indicates the beginning of rutting season. The male members of the deer family are polygamous, each mating with several females. During rutting season, each male will try to group the females in his territory. This is usually enough to drive away another male. Sometimes they do more than simply try to intimidate one another. When two dominant males of about the same size meet, they may fight. The fighting will be of varying degrees of intensity, but it's always brief. Fighting requires a lot of energy, and I think they want to save their strength for other things during mating season. Our most impressive older males will hang back. The younger, more eager males will begin the rutting season right away, staking their territory by bellowing across the mountainside. Each is making his claim, telling the others that this is his territory, so keep out. Here's another man of hard work. They seem to enjoy it. While the younger, mature males are handsome and impressive animals, they lack the experience of the older males. The younger males will begin the rutting season when only 2 to 3% of females are receptive. And when the older males appear on the scene, once the younger males have exhausted themselves, the younger males will be driven off. At this time, up to 60%. You're listening to Radio Parc Omega on 88.1 FM.
在哪儿呢？在这儿啊。
We're speaking to Alain and Bruno, two park employers, who'll tell us about the animals that can be found in Parc Omega. Now, we'll visit the bears.
人家不要钻这坎儿，你两个这样晃。
We have only one species of bear at Parc
钻那
Omega,
头。
the black bear. Despite the name, these bears may have different colored fur, such as cinnamon or white in the case of albinos, though they usually have black fur.
钻哪
对
个头啊？，
抓这儿，抓上头有点这个。
转哪儿都红。转哪儿？
They're
让你开过去，开过去。
Actually, we have signs up along the roadway asking people not to feed the bears. We have bears that have been entrusted to our care, our own park bears. Sometimes, though rarely, we get bears from the outside that manage to penetrate the perimeter. We have an electrical fence that runs around the park, but bears can dig. With a lot of effort, a bear from the outside may succeed in getting inside the
推
park.
出去不要这样。
Once here, they'll wander along the road because that's where there's a lot of food.
看我
Bears are
摸一下。
omnivores. They can eat both the corn and the pellets left for the raccoons at the feeding stations. You may see a bear as you drive through the park, and therefore it's extremely important that you A. do
推
not
推
feed
推
the
往外推
bears,
推出
B.
去。
respect the safety
对，
precautions
然后我
and
走
stay inside
来
your
几个
vehicle
动感的
and
，OK。
keep the windows mostly rolled up to
是的。
prevent an animal from sticking its head in the car. Never forget that your car is your main form of protection against the animals in the park.
We all know that bears hibernate, but how do they manage to sleep all winter long?
L'ours, il va entrer dans un semi-sommeil, si vous voulez,
那是啥？
on est capable.
Bears will fall into a state of half sleep, at which time their metabolism will slow down to the point where they can no longer stay awake during the winter. They may wake up enough during nicer days in February to stick their noses outside to get a look around, but they always go back to sleep since their metabolism is slowed so much.
Avoir des activités comme il y a en été.
They certainly don't have the energy to be as active as they are in the summer. I think bears have developed the ability to hibernate because it would be difficult for them to find enough food for the winter months.
C'est pas un animal qui est adapté.
Bears aren't adapted to walking on the snow because they have short legs.
对。
Hibernation is an
有点
excellent way for them to spend the coldest months of the year.
Puis, l'ours m'a fait penser un peu comme chez l'être humain. On a des vieux
Bears
individus
remind me of
qui ont été
humans. We have some older bears in the park that begin hibernating in October, while the younger bears will start hibernating much later, even as late as December.
Puis les jeunes, là, ça va beaucoup plus tard.
The younger bears are still able to party hard, but the older bears start hibernating earlier. We've observed that these older animals have built up greater reserves of body fat because they eat a lot. During the winter, they live off their accumulated fat. So when we see the older bear in the spring, they're fit as a fiddle. They look like they just started hibernating. However, the younger bears are much thinner. They may be more active. I don't know what goes on in their lairs, but we can sometimes hear grumbling from lairs where two bears are hibernating together. Or if the weather's nice, they may go as far as 45 feet from their lairs.
这东西能把你车
This means they use a lot more energy than the older bears.
很有劲儿。
对，
This makes me think of the older wapiti. All animal species, including humans, draw on life experience. They do the right thing at the right time, using their energy wisely.
这个真好看。什么声音这是？动物的声音。
Les ours, période des amours, c'était au mois de juin. Ils donnent naissance.
The mating season for bears is in June. Females give birth to 1, 2, or 3 cubs in February.
Ce qui est intriguant chez les ours, c'est que les
也可以到
Most
后
people don't know this, but the females will give birth in February while they're still in hibernation. The newborn cub will make its own way to its mother's teat. It's amazing to think an adult bear that tips the scales at 400 pounds or more only weighs about half a pound at birth.
进点
Bears
玩
are
吧。
born naked and blind.
那大哈喇子，弄得那车窗。
This explains why bear cubs are so small at birth. They couldn't survive alone, so they stay near their mothers to keep warm and only emerge from the lair in the spring at their mother's side.
吓死我！别往里进啊！
There's a dominant couple, the healthiest couple that leads the pack. Only they have the right to reproduce, which ensures the pack remains strong. The other wolves in the pack don't have the right to breed. The hierarchy in the pack is very clearly established.
不要
All
纵，
wolves
你老是
respect
纵
我。没错，
peut y arriver où un
我
individu
是射一下风
On
了一下。
occasion, an
不管
individual
你射
wolf
什么，
may feel
你要
strong
想
enough
稳
to
定，
challenge the alpha male. This
尤
results
其
in
照
a fight
远景
for
还用不着
dominance.
纵。
The dominant male can be identified by his tail, which stands straight up in the air. The challenger for the role of alpha male will raise his tail in the same manner. This is like throwing down the gauntlet, and a fight ensues to establish dominance. Not only is there an alpha male, there's also
那
an
没
alpha
有任何意
female.
义上的。
The females are
你不如
fiercely
这样斜
competitive
着照
among
片，
themselves.
这
to
它也
become
有更多
dominant
的层
female.
次。搞
Dominant
搞
male will
这样
only
斜
mate
着
with
照，
dominant female.
有更多的层次。这横着照那么近，照哪个景都一
La
样。
mode va prendre soin des petits, va prendre
The entire pack will care for, watch over, and teach the young. Unable to feed themselves when they live in an enclosed area, we give the wolves a special type of feed that looks a lot like dog food.
On doit à l'occasion leur donner
We have to give them animal carcasses from time to time. The Ministry of Transport brings us the carcasses of animals that have been killed by cars, which we then give to the wolves.
pour
It's important wolves eat an entire animal, including the fur and bones, to ensure their digestive systems continue to function properly, because such food is part of their natural diet.
他们走的路线就是你说的路线，
对，
都这么睡觉。
A study was even done in our region, Mudawa region, in Paparola Bell Park, where many hybrid specimens were identified. We have a male coyote wolf hybrid here at the park. Coyotes from the southern or northern United States are smaller than those found in Canada due to the interbreeding between wolves and coyotes. As a result, Canadian coyotes are hardier and better adapted to our cold winters than their southern cousins. Wolf coyote crossbreeds are bigger and stronger than American pure-blood coyotes. Coyotes don't hibernate, they're active all winter.
Here we are in wild boar territory.
le sanglier qu'on a ici, bon,
The wild boars in the park come from Europe. The boars haven't been released into the wild in Quebec, but they're an animal that's well suited to breeding farms. They're not difficult to raise because they eat just about anything and reproduce quickly. However, European wild boars have a few problems with the Canadian winter because their legs are so short. In addition, they like to make beds in the grass. In the winter, they'll make their beds in the fodder set out for the deer and bison. We give them a hand, but they cope very well.
l'introduction du sanglier au Québec.
Over the years, the European wild boars have bred with Canadian boars. A European boar will have 1 litter per year, while their Canadian cousins can have up to 3. As a result, there are a lot of little boars running around. It's fun to watch them because they like to play and explore things. Visitors may see some beautiful birds of prey in flight.
Of the many species living in different areas in the park, and how the animals adapt to the changing seasons. You'll also learn about the history of Park Omega, including the reasons why it was created. Last but not least, they'll tell you what is new at the park. During this broadcast, you'll hear recordings of the calls and cries of the animals. Unfortunately, it's not always possible to hear the animals live, because sometimes they just don't feel like talking or they feel particularly shy that day. So, keep your eyes and ears peeled, and we hope you have a great visit in Park Omega.
Brothers,
They're
the
the
Spengler brothers from
妈
Europe,
黑色儿，
from
他那色
Zest
儿
was
你怎么
obsessed. They knew a lot about
Amazing.
wildlife and wanted the
别
land
别
for a
那么别
hunting
胡闯
reserve,
我。
which they created in 1986. So they bought the
看
land,
他跑。
built a 20-kilometer fence around it, that's about 12
到
miles,
现在公里
and。began
什么都吃。
C'est l'idée vraiment centrale du parc.
The main idea behind the park is to present animals in their natural habitats.
这居然跟鹿
The
弄
park
在一
grounds
起
are。quite large, covering an area measuring some
Whoa.
2,000. Habitat suits them well. On the other hand, the
Sure.
winters for the herbivores if the gray wolves and Arctic wolves were allowed to run loose. So we're forced to keep the wolves in enclosed areas.
Certains autres
Some animals, like
Sure.
black bears and coyotes, live in the wild just outside the park. Sometimes we'll find black bears or coyotes in the park after they succeeded in getting past the fence surrounding the park. This is the reason why we put up signs that say, "Do not feed the bears." Sometimes we see
les coyotes se promènent en liberté. On a de temps
the
en temps,
coyotes wander around freely. On occasion, one of the deer is attacked by the coyotes. I think recreating real living conditions for the wildlife, even the relationship of predator and prey, has been one of the golden rules since the park was opened.
les coyotes existent encore dans le parc.
It's completely natural to have coyotes in the park, wild coyotes I mean, or that wild bears are found here because this keeps the herbivores in their natural state of mind, that is, they're kept on their guard. The park's environment is a semi-wild state. The animals' living conditions aren't exactly like those they would have in the wild. It would be hard to recreate such conditions. When you're in the wild, you'll see on average an animal every 50 wild animals. We recommend that you stay on your guard and always remember that these are not domesticated animals. Keep a respectful distance from them, remain inside your vehicle when driving through the park, and never under any circumstances extend more than your hand out of your vehicle. And if you choose to feed the animals, we warmly recommend you do not feed the bison or the large males of the deer family. Species and in population. But in Parc Omega, the reverse is true, as our goal biological heritage for future in a valley hidden by thick forests.
看出来不一样。
People want to see the variety of landscapes that exist here. The natural forest is not the dominant feature in every part of the park.
鼻子
We've
长，
struck a good balance among the types of terrain found in the park. The ancient glacier-worn bedrock of the Canadian Shield, the man-made prairies, and the forest. Overall, we have very interesting types of terrain that are fairly representative of the geography of the Outaouais region. I think that one of the original ideas was to create a pleasing environment where people could see Canadian flora and fauna in their natural habitats.
你看它鹿
The
角
whole point is to
粗
give，people
看
a
出来
chance to visit and explore the park at their own
比刚才
pace.
见那个大哈，又大又粗。
The original
看到那
idea
鹿角
was to
很
reach
大
people at an
很重
emotional level,
对，
to draw on our fascination with nature. Then we work at making the park even more fascinating. This is exactly what we do. We make the park even
别叫
more
它
fascinating.
撞了你，你把车
But
摇出
without
来。
being boring or
From
stuffing information down people's throats. We don't overload visitors with information. Basically, a visit to the park is a personally rewarding experience.
感觉它不捡，
哎呦，什么声？
给它扔地下它不捡。
别扔地，浪费。
哎，浪费不了，这有的东西，有的是东西吃。你光不对吧？
光对，光不
We
对
are。talking to Olivier Favre on Radio Park Omega. Olivier, what's new this season at the park?
Les nouveautés du parc, qu'on aura plaisir de présenter aux visiteurs, sont tout d'abord
We're pleased to announce that we have a new pack of wolves that you can see at Area 1 on the map.
depuis la passerelle, on a la possibilité de voir des loups évoluer de
还要，
From the walkway, you can watch the wolves up close,
哎呀，
no more than a few meters
看
away.
看哈喇子少哈。
You can sit
太棒了。
behind a hill at the end of the footpath. So when going to see the farm, you'll take a nice walk through some beautiful scenery.
这是一个，还有那边一个。
对，我慢慢弄，你不要动。
别动，我别动别动。
Another interesting
我马上
addition
就
in
来。
Area 10 is the reintroduction of wild turkeys along the footpath.
我开镜子照的好。
我镜子先照一下。
There used to be wild turkeys in Quebec and elsewhere across Canada, but they
进不了，行，
disappeared
好了
from
，
你
certain
不
parts of the
明白，你
country.
这是光条镜头，一定得近
The
照。
park's participating in
这
reintroducing
狼爱
wild
吃开
turkeys,
的，真是。
and you can see these animals as you take a walk along the footpath.
啊，给他来块东西。
嗯，
我们俩有感情。
Le visiteur aura la possibilité de
Ah.
découvrir de nombreux petits
Ouais, il y a un truc ailleurs,
du
là.
Canada et du Québec.
是吗？
Visitors will
我
also
这
be
个
able
角
to
度
see
不
many
好。
small
等会儿
common
等会儿
Canadian
一
mammals
会儿
around the
一会儿
park
我先问
lodge.
完他再说。
The government wildlife service bring us different species of orphaned animals, which we take in. Often these animals are bottle fed and released in the
好，
wild
这个角度好
in
了
the。fall.
在这儿。
In the summer, you'll see raccoons. They're around almost every year. And perhaps groundhogs, porcupines, and fawns that the park rescues throughout the summer. You can see these young animals around the lodge. Eventually, they'll be released either in the park or in the wild, outside, once they've reached adulthood.
“往前走啊！
嗯，走吧。
狼，你好。
还有狼呢？有狼。这么俩狼啊？
狼有电网。
哦，电网的不让过来，过来不得了，把人吃了。前面是狼吗？嗯。
如果这是个东西不能很长，
不要做。
要是你处理，哦，我以前不说呢。
我给你开镜。
Allez, écoute original.
Now we'll be speaking to Alain Massy and his colleague Bruno Saint-Denis. Both are responsible for making sure the Parc Omega operates smoothly every day of the year. Because
The park's open year-round, on Christmas, New Year's Day, Easter. Basically, the park's never closed. When people are on vacation, you need other people working.
yes, that's right. Alain and Bruno will now tell us about all the animals you can see at Parc Omega.
Les wapitis, c'est où? Les daims?
We have wapiti, red deer, fallow deer,
行走。
bison.
What can they give them?
你先照，然后我
We recommend carrots because this is a type of food that's not harmful to the animals, even if eaten in large quantities.
C'est une sucrerie, c'est un bonbon.
On top of that, carrots are sweet, so it's like candy for them. A lot of carrots in the summer. We have so many people who feed.
Ah ouais, hein? Mais il a fait à peine 50 pieds, puis il revient.
不稳定，
还是
在电视上不行的那样。
We'll now begin the tour with Alain and
including waterfowl, ducks, amphibians, frogs, and turtles. Beavers eat branches from trees that grow around their lodges, such as birch and aspen. In the wild, beavers that have to travel too far to find branches to eat simply end up moving to another area. So to prevent them from leaving, we give them enough branches every day so they can store them for the winter. By building dams, beavers make the walling a
我可以
series
靠
of
近
dams.
的，明白？
They're making themselves a large habitat in which they can
你
live
先照
in
这个，
complete
等会
safety.
儿你就这样照，我会靠近的。对，
En hiver, le castor est actif, mais sous la glace, on le voit pas.
Beavers are active in winter, but we can't see them under the ice. They store the branches they eat outside the entrance to their lodges, which is underwater. They go feed, then they return to their homes.
冲着进来。
If beavers run out of food during the winter, they must go get some more. This is very dangerous for them as they're not adapted to walking on the snow. It's at this time they're most vulnerable to coyotes or wolves. Beavers have become adapted to dachshund, but they do play a central role in the history of North America. Bison are very calm animals. They live in a herd.
不要
The bison we have in the park are prairie bison, not forest bison. Regardless of the weather conditions, they enjoy living in the prairie. Even in the dead of winter, with the wind blowing some 50 or 60 kilometers an hour,
我得换磁带了。
the road through the animal areas as many times as you wish. You should take advantage of this because you may see animal species on your second time round that you missed the first. Your second drive through the park may be a completely different adventure. Just remember the animals have the freedom to move around and are not confined to any one area. Since bison are herd animals, they tend to come all at once if you stick a carrot out the window. This could mean you could have... extra food.
What are the differences among the various members of the deer family?
In terms of size, the moose are the largest, followed by the wapiti, red deer, roe deer, fallow deer, white-tailed deer. White-tailed deer are a species native to North America, while fallow deer were introduced from Europe. Another North American and European pairing are wapiti and red deer. They are shorter but stockier. Wapiti are very large, quite tall, have a solid bone structure, and their antlers reach further back than those of the deer. Red deer have a flatter forehead than wapiti. Moose eat a lot of water plants in the summer. Their build is adapted to this diet, a large nose and thick lips to grab the plants. They're good swimmers, able to dive to a depth of 6 meters, about 18 feet, to feed. On the other hand, wapiti only go into the water to cool down. Moose have a very distinct appearance. They're much darker, and their antlers, unlike the other members of the deer family, are flatter, like giant salad tongs, and extend to the sides as opposed to the back. Moose antlers act like a satellite dish. They use them to better capture sound. Sound less because it's hard for them to walk in the snow. Doing so requires a lot of energy, which they desperately need to stay warm. Consequently, they move around the park very little when it's cold outside. Being nervous is one of their characteristics. All red deer living in the wild behave the same way. Maybe it's because wapiti are dominant. They'll approach cars and chase the smaller deer away. But all of these animals have their own niches within the 1,500-acre park. I won't say there's competition for a particular... You can't tell a deer's age by counting the number of points on its antlers. The size of the antlers is simply a matter of genetics. For example, some moose that are between 2 to 4 years old will have only 4 points on their antlers. Some won't even have any antlers at all. Others, whose fathers had very big antlers, will also have big antlers, even by the time they're 2 years old. Contrary to popular belief, you can't tell a deer's age by counting the number of points on an animal's antlers.
So deer lose their antlers every year, which then grow back, right?
The antlers fall off after mating season. A male deer with a large set of antlers is a majestic and noble sight. The antlers begin to grow back in April and reach their full size by July. Then, between July and early August, the velvet covering the antlers begins to fall off. This velvet covers the antlers as they grow. During this period, the antlers are very sensitive and contain many blood vessels. The deer are careful to avoid hitting their antlers against branches in the forest because it's painful. After they shed the velvet, however, the antlers harden and become a weapon. This indicates the beginning of rutting season. The male members of the deer family are polygamous, each mating with several females. Allows his territory from leaving and prevent other males from trying to steal his harem. Often the older males have only to show their large antlers to discourage their younger rivals. This is usually enough to drive away another male. Sometimes they do more than simply try to intimidate one another. When two dominant males of about the same size meet, they may fight. The fighting will be of varying degrees of intensity, but it's always brief. Fighting requires a lot of energy, and I think they want to save their strength for other things during mating season. In the fall, it's impressive to watch the males run back and forth to keep the females together and drive off their rivals. Males will lose 20% of their body weight during mating season. Not only do they eat a lot less, they're preoccupied with their task. It's a lot of hard work, but they seem to enjoy it.
Là, il aurait aimé ça. Les plus jeunes qui sont bons à maturité, c'est certains qui sont beaux.
While the younger mature males are handsome and impressive animals, they lack the experience of the older males. The younger males will begin the rutting season when only 2 to 3% of females are receptive. And when the older males appear on the scene, once the younger males have exhausted themselves, the younger males will be driven off. At this time, up to 60% of the You're listening to Radio Parc Omega on 88.1 FM. That's why we have signs up along the roadway asking people not to feed the bears. We have bears that have been entrusted to our care, our own park bears. Sometimes, though rarely, we get bears from the outside that manage to penetrate the perimeter. We have an electrical fence that runs around the park, but bears can dig. With a lot of effort, a bear from the outside may succeed in getting inside the park. Once here, they'll wander along the road because that's where there's a lot of food. Bears are omnivores. They can eat both the corn and the pellets left for the raccoons at the feeding stations. You may see a bear as you drive through the park, and therefore it's extremely important that you, A, do not feed the bears, animals in the park.
We all know that bears hibernate, but how do they manage to sleep all winter long?
L'ours, ils vont entrer dans un semi-sommeil, si vous voulez, mais on est à...
Bears will fall into a state of half
行，你
sleep,
手转，你
at
看
which
见
time
了
their metabolism will slow down to the point where they can no longer stay awake during the
有
winter.
眼啊，眼
They may wake up enough during nicer
Oh, yeah,
days
they're
in
not shy,
February
come
to stick their
here.
noses outside to
This is
get a look
terrible.
around, but they always go back to sleep since their
是等会儿
metabolism
等会
is
儿
slowed so much.
我是在这儿
avoir des
Dans les
activités
bras.
comme là en été.
They certainly don't have the energy to be as active
等
as
会
they
儿
are
人
in
家
the summer.
问你
Bears have developed the ability to hibernate because it would be difficult for them to find enough food for the winter months. Bears aren't adapted to walking on snow because they have short legs. Hibernation is an excellent way for them to spend the coldest months of the year.
L'ours me fait penser un peu comme chez l'être humain.
学了没关系。
Bears remind me of
Here's over.
humans. We have some older bears in the park that begin hibernating in October, while the younger bears will start hibernating much later, even as late as December. The younger bears are still able to party.
Ah, les gars qui sont sortis, on va-tu les voir avant de les manger? Oui.
有多大？你看看，你过来看看这个位置。
行，stop。
慢点，慢点。
on court pas. On court pas.
桥挺漂亮。 它吃肉还是吃面包
是chicken。
？chicken 呢？嗯。
Tu sais où ils doivent manger le pot, le poil, ça, quand les ailes. Il y a des gens qui trouvent les rapaces qui sont blessés, ils essaient de leur redonner des hamburgers. C'est pas bon parce qu'ils ont besoin de calcium. Et ce que c'est ils n'utilisent pas, ils vont avaler le métal dans une petite morceau. Parce que ces oiseaux, ils sont dans la caravane pour le spectacle. Il y a des boîtes, ouais. Et il est avec nous.
别着急，他得待嘛。
Bonjour, hello. Bonjour et bienvenue au Parc Omega aujourd'hui. Et bienvenue à notre spectacle. Je m'appelle Christian, voici Nadine. Nous deux sommes les représentants d'une compagnie qui s'appelle Canadian Raptor Conservancy. Et notre installation est située près de Port Dover en Ontario, près du lac Erie. Ce qu'on fait à notre installation, nous travaillons spécifiquement avec les oiseaux de proie. Et nous voyageons à travers le pays pour éduquer le grand public au sujet de ces magnifiques oiseaux. So, hello everybody, and welcome to Omega Park today. Welcome to our Birds of Prey show. Unfortunately, it has just started raining somewhat. If we see lightning in the sky, it starts thundering as well. Unfortunately, we will have to cancel the show because some of our birds, in fact all of our birds, are wearing little rings on their feet. And so we don't want them to get electrocuted. Malheureusement, si on voit des éclairs dans le ciel, on doit annuler le spectacle. Southwestern Ontario, right on Lake Erie. What we do with our facility, we work specifically with birds of prey. And we do it as an endangered species in its Canadian range. It is only found in certain parts of Ontario and British Columbia. This is a barn owl. C'est une chouette effraie de clocher. Et elle s'appelle Olive Oil. Olive Oil at 3 ans. So Olive Oil, our little barn owl, is 3 years old. Et ça c'est sa taille adulte. This is also her adult size. Maintenant, cette feuille est confuse, ça c'est sûr. Et c'est la journée. Et ces oiseaux sont des oiseaux nocturnes. Ils font la chasse exclusivement dans la nature pendant la nuit. So sometimes little Olive Oil gets a little bit confused from time to time because this is not really her normal time to be out. We trained her to fly in shows during the day, but she is a nocturnal animal, meaning she only does her hunting at night. Il y a quelques raisons pour lesquelles Olive Oil ici fait la chasse exclusivement pendant la nuit. Une raison, c'est que les autres oiseaux de proie, comme les faucons et les bies et les éperviers, font la chasse exclusivement pendant la journée. Et aussi, la proie de cet animal ici mange quand elle arrive sur le gant de Nadine. Elle mange une petite collation de poulet. Tous les oiseaux que vous verrez aujourd'hui, ce sont des carnivores. Les oiseaux de proie mangent seulement de la viande. So, la raison pour laquelle, quand on le voit au baptême, elle fait de bruit, c'est parce que ces oiseaux, les chouettes et les hiboux, ont des plumes spéciales qui lui permettent de se mettre en vol ou voler. Thankfully, she doesn't make any noise with her wings, so this helps her a lot when she's trying to find food. Et ces oiseaux ici peuvent manger environ 4 souris par nuit. These birds here can eat up to 4 mice a night. And the babies can eat up to 8 mice a night. Les bébés mangent environ 8 souris par nuit. D'accord, avant de chercher une autre oiseau anywhere in Canada actually, it's found in the southern United States, Mexico, and South America. This is a member of the hawk family, and his name is Groucho. So let me introduce you to Groucho, our Harris hawk. Cet oiseau ici se trouve pas au Canada du tout. C'est un oiseau qui se trouve au sud, dans le sud des États-Unis, et en Mexique, et aussi en Amérique du Sud. Cet oiseau, c'est une buse, et c'est une buse qui s'appelle la buse de Harris. Et son nom, c'est Groucho. Donc, voici Groucho, notre buse de Harris. Cet oiseau ici a une intéressante habitude. Il aime atterrir sur la tête des gens qui regardent le spectacle. So these birds actually have an interesting habit. Ils aiment passer dans les arbres aussi. They also like to perch in trees. No, he's just being a little bit silly right now. Maybe he wants to go off and do his own hunting. No, it's not a problem. He'll be back in 1 sec. Mais, comme j'ai juste dit tantôt, Ces oiseaux aiment atterrir sur la tête des gens qui regardent le spectacle. Mais les papillons, ces oiseaux, c'est vrai, ont des cerfs, des griffes qui sont très pointus, mais c'est un oiseau qui se trouve au désert. Donc, quelle sorte de végétation est-ce qu'il atterrit là-dessus au désert? Des cactus, exactement. Ces oiseaux atterrissent ou perchent sur des cactus au désert. These birds are known to perch on cactuses out in the desert. Donc, pour percher ou atterrir sur un cactus avec pas de danger, il doit le faire très soigneusement et légèrement pour que les épines du cactus ne lui piquent pas. So in order for this guy to land safely on a cactus, of course, he would have to land very gently and carefully so that the cactus needles don't prick his little footsies. That would be unfortunate. Donc, si cet oiseau décide d'atterrir sur votre tête, probablement il pense que vous ressemblez un peu à une cactus. So if this guy decides to perch on your head, he probably just thinks you resemble a cactus somewhat. But fortunately, it won't hurt. Ces oiseaux aussi mangent beaucoup d'intéressantes choses au désert. Ils mangent des invertébrés comme des scorpions. Puis c'est aussi le seul prédateur naturel du serpent à sommet. This guy eats some interesting stuff out in the desert. He eats known to eat such as et qui est chassé par un coyote qui s'appelle Wiley. C'est qui? Le Road Runner. Le géocoucou grand du Californie. C'est la proie préférée de cet oiseau ici. Mais quand même, c'est très difficile pour cet oiseau d'attraper un géocoucou, un Road Runner, lui-même. Donc, ces oiseaux utilisent une stratégie très intéressante. Ils font la chasse. That's why we can't have more than one bird out at a time. If we had more than one bird, as I just said, show predators of one another. Ces oiseaux ici sont des prédateurs potentiels l'un et l'autre. Non, seulement mettre en vol un à une fois. Donc, on va remettre Groucho pour la journée. So I think we're going to put back Groucho for today. Et avant de voir notre troisième one, obviously eager to get flying today. This is Storm, our red-tailed hawk. Cet oiseau ici, voici Storm, notre buse à queue rousse. C'est un oiseau que peut-être vous avez déjà vu sur des autoroutes, juste au bord des autoroutes. Il aime percher sur des postes téléphoniques. Et c'est l'oiseau avec un corps brun et blanche, avec un queue de rouge brillant. So this is the bird you'll often find by the highway. He likes to do his hunting right at the edge of the highway, actually. Perhaps for the reason that the grass is actually usually cut short, so he can find little rodents there. So he'll perch up on telephone poles, wait for the appropriate opportunity to come down and have a little meal. This is the bird with a brown and white body and a brilliantly colored brick red tail feathers. So this is Storm again, our red-tailed hawk. Ces oiseaux sont un peu semblables à des humains. Ils sont très adaptables. On les trouve partout au Canada. Et ils sont assez bien à tout ce qu'ils font, ce qu'ils peuvent faire. Ils ont une bonne sens de vision. Ils ont un bon sens de vie. Ils sont assez forts. Ils ne sont pas assez si forts qu'un aigle. Ils n'ont pas un sens de vie qui est si puissant qu'un hibou, une chouette. Mais assez bons à tout ce qu'ils font. Donc, c'est la raison pour laquelle on trouve ces oiseaux partout au Canada. Ils sont un peu comme un pneu percé, et c'est aussi très impressionnant et majestueux. Puis, souvent, vous voyez un aigle à l'écran, mais le cri de la buse à queue rousse est doublé. So, these birds are often the voice in a lot of movies. The sound they make while they're hunting sounds kind of like a leaky tire. So a lot of filmmakers like to use this and dub it over, so you'll see an impressive looking eagle flying across the screen often, like in the movie Hidalgo, for instance. But really, the noise that eagle's making is the noise that the red-tailed hawk actually makes when he's doing his hunting. No, Storm, that's the years actually, where the expression hoodwinked also comes from. And this is just today. On va le mettre Anna sur un poste. Et puis, Nadine tient quelque chose dans ses mains qui s'appelle une leurre. So right now, Nadine's holding something in her hands. It's called a lure. And attached to the lure is a piece of meat. And what Nadine's going to do is she's going to go like this with the lure. And this bird over here, Anna, our Lander falcon, is going to think that the lure is another bird in flight. And Anna is a bird that actually catches other birds. So we'll see if she tries to catch the lure in flight for us today. Ces oiseaux ici sont des oiseaux qui mangent d'autres petits oiseaux. Donc, Medvedine tient dans ses mains quelque chose qui s'appelle une leurre et attaché à la leurre, un petit morceau de viande. Et on va voir si Anna, notre faucon lanier, va essayer de l'attraper en plein vol pour nous aujourd'hui. Donc, on est presque prêt. I think we're ready to get going. Est-ce que Azali, okay, I think Azali here is going to help us out. She's going to take off Anna's little hat so she can see. Azali va enlever cette casquette de Anna pour qu'elle puisse voir. Et maintenant, on va voir si Anna va faire la chasse pour nous aujourd'hui. So now we're going to see if Anna wants to hunt for us today, or if she's just going to sit there and embarrass me like Storm. All right. Oh. Maintenant, ça commence. Et peut-être ça regarde un peu comme elle veut s'échapper. Mais j'espère. C'est la façon que ces oiseaux font la chasse. En général, les faucons font des grands cercles autour de sa proie. Et puis finalement, elle va essayer de l'attraper. So it may look as though Anna's sort of trying to get away. Well, there it didn't. She actually went to the lure. But sometimes it looks like she's flying off. And when that happens, what's really going on is this is the way falcons hunt. They make big circles around their prey, generally to render it confused, and also to gain height and speed. And then she will eventually try and catch the lure, or what she thinks is her prey, while it's in flight. Donc maintenant, ça regarde comme elle veut s'échapper, comme j'ai juste dit. Now it really looks like she wants to fly away from us for good. And perhaps she has. Peut-être elle a s'en aller. Elle se repose maintenant? Ah no. Oh no. I'm told that she is perched somewhere nearby. Oh, there she is. Wait, is that her up there? No, that's a turkey vulture. Donc, ce oiseau là-bas, c'est pas Anna. C'est une hiribue à tête rouge. C'est une autre espèce d'oiseau de proie qui est membre de la famille des vautours. Oh. Puis Anna est finalement de retour après se reposer. So Anna took a little break there. We don't generally encourage. But now she's back to continue the hunt, hopefully. And we'll hopefully bring it to a successful conclusion for us today. Oh. Wow, now she's decided to land on our scale. I don't know if you noticed that. But she went into a little clubhouse over there and landed on the scale. Wow. Oh no. Oh, ça va. Wow, this is really quite incredible. So fortunately that wasn't a bigger bird, otherwise it really could have hurt. Doing her own thing. It's pretty fast, but she's actually the cousin of the fastest bird, or fastest animal I should say, found in the world. C'est quoi le plus vite animal qui trouve au monde? C'est une espèce de faucon. Quelqu'un veut me dire? C'est le pigargue à tête blanche. L'aigle à tête blanche. Et elle s'appelle Coco. So our last bird of the show is the second largest bird of prey found in North America, the bald eagle. You may be wondering, why does she not look like a bald eagle, like the symbol or emblem of the United States? Well, the reason for that is Coco here is only 3 years old, and it takes 5 years for her to develop her white plumage on her head and tail feathers. Donc la raison pour laquelle Coco ici n'a pas encore sa tête blanche, comme le symbole des États-Unis, c'est parce que Coco a seulement 3 ans, ça prend 5 ans d'avoir la tête blanche. Donc, dans 2 années, Coco ici, sa tête va changer de couleur. Ça va regarder très différent de regarde maintenant. She's going to look a lot different than she does right now in a couple of years when she has her white head. Donc, combien est-ce que vous pensez que cet oiseau ici, Coco, le pigargue à tête blanche, pèse? Combien de livres? Kilos. So how much do you think this bird weighs, guys? Coco or bald eagle? 1 kilo? 1 livre. Okay. 1 livre? Ok. Quelqu'un d'autre veut spéculer? Philippe? Ouais. Vous êtes très proche. So, 10 pounds is actually the closest guess yet. And Coco here only weighs 7 pounds. So, as you see, pèse seulement 7 livres. So she looks quite big, but really she's just a lot of feathers and hollow bones. Elle regarde très grand, c'est vrai, mais c'est juste beaucoup de plumes. Elle pèse seulement 7 livres. Les oiseaux aussi adorent manger de la poisson. Vous pouvez les trouver près des lacs et des rivières. So these birds love fishing. They love eating fish, that's their favorite food. You'll often find them near lakes and rivers. Il y a aussi un autre fait qui est intéressant de ces oiseaux. Ils construisent les plus gros nids qui se trouvent au monde. These birds also build the biggest nests found in the world. Period. Et le plus gros nid qui se trouve au monde se trouve à Cape Canaveral en Floride. Et ça de 2 aigles à tête blanche. So the biggest nest found in the world is found in Cape Canaveral, Florida. It's 3.2 by 2.5 meters, and it weighs 2 metric tons. 2 tons. So it weighs about the same thing as 2 cars. Puis l'espérance de vie, c'est que quand les populations de ces oiseaux se portent bien, ça veut dire aussi que notre environnement se porte bien. Et en général, quand les rapaces deviennent plus rares, ça veut dire aussi probablement qu'il y a un problème quelque part. C'est aussi fort probable que nous, les humains, sommes les responsables de ces problèmes des oiseaux. Mais heureusement, nous avons peut-être aussi les ressources pour les aider. Et